dripping down from the skies upon Mount Hermon, refreshing the mountain slopes of Israel. For from this realm of sweet harmony, God will release his eternal blessing, the promise of life forever. And also Ephesians 1:18, I pray that the light of God will illuminate the eyes of your imagination, flooding you with light until you experience the full unveiling of the hope of his calling, that is the wealth of God's glorious inheritances that he finds in us, his holy ones. So I pray for wisdom within this council, wisdom within every city leader. I pray for unity and fresh ideas to flow. I pray for a sweet protection over every officer, over every city leader who is out putting themselves in harm's way. I pray for peace among the citizens. I pray for faithfulness of families. And most of all, I pray for strength within every city leader to rise up against difficulties and to do the very things that you are calling them to do. This I pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Dan. So now we will officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Clem,
Here.
McClanathan,
Here.
Ross,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Brashaw,
Here.
and Keister.
Here.
Thank you. If you could please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Parker.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. And I would just like to ask that we would observe a moment of silence now in the honoring of the life, the service, and the passing of our 41st President of the United States, George H.W. Bush. Thank you. Item number 1 is the approval of the agenda. However, we have a couple of changes to it. Item number 18, we will be moving to the cow for further discussion, as well as following public comments, we will have the introduction of our new library director. So is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Keister. All those in favor of the approval of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes from the November 19th, 2018 meeting. Is there a motion for the approval of those minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
We have a motion made by Alderman Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Ross for the approval of the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Item number 3 is public comments. And that would be on a non-agenda item, so that would have to be after the meeting. And so the next would be the introduction of our new library director.
Your Honor, your Mayor, City Councilman, and men and women, department heads, City Manager. I hadn't intended to be here so soon, but God moves in strange ways, and many times he blesses things that happen, and so I'm very grateful for his action and what's transpired at the library. But it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Ashley Huffins, who is our new director of the Freeport Public Library. Ashley.
I just want to introduce myself. It's Ashley Huffines. But it's great. I've met a lot of you around town, and I'm excited to be committed to the movement of change that's happening in this community. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Okay, the next item is the appointments. Madam Clerk, could you please read those for the record?
Acceptance of an appointment of James Berberet to the City Council as the Alderman at Large to replace the vacated position by Andrew Chesley, effective immediately. Acceptance of an appointment of Brandon Erickson to the Planning Commission to replace James Berberet, effective immediately through October 31st, 2021.
And we have a motion made by, please take the roll on the acceptance.
Parker?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
McClanathan?
Aye.
And Ross?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next is the swearing in by our Honorable Judge Bald.
I, James N. Berberet, having been appointed to the office of Alderman at Large in the city of Freeport, Illinois, in the county of Stevenson, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Alderman at Large according to the best of my ability.
Okay, thank you, Judge. And Alderman Berberet, you are welcome to take your seat. And next on the agenda is the recognition of service awards. Manager Crow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We will, gotta get them out of here. So, first recognize Joshua Wilkin. So, Joshua, I want to congratulate you and recognize you for 5 years of service in the fire department. So, there's your certificate. I'll turn it over to Chief. Let him talk.
Congratulations, John. 5 years with us. He went to Highland, first paramedic, finished that, and has been a contributor throughout. He is on his way through the technical rescue classes now, and Josh is one of those positive influences in the station, and somebody that I think is going to contribute to this department in the future. I'm very privileged to have you. So, go on, Josh. Yep.
I'll turn it over to the police chief.
Andrew has been with the department for 10 years. He heads up our honor guard, which is very important to our department. It's one of the very visible things, and you want to make sure you get it right when you do that. Andrew has taken our honor guard to the next step. He also represents the Freeport Police Department on the multi-jurisdictional honor guard too, as well. A group that's active in the region. Andrew is a team leader and also the sniper on our SWAT team. He also is the rifle instructor on our use of force staff. Andrew, more importantly, is a U.S. veteran, so thank you very much, Andrew.
On the agenda is the consent agenda, which is considered to be acted in one motion unless there's a member of the council who would like to have something removed for further discussion. Is there any further discussion on the consent agenda items separately? Seeing none, the consent agenda consists of A, the approval to receive and place on file the letter of resignation from Alderman at Large Andrew Chesney, minutes from the Board of Fire and Police Commission meeting from October 23rd, 2018, the Fire Department report for September 2018, the approval of the finance bills payable in a total of $471,131.93, and the approval of the payroll for pay period ending November 24th, 2018, in the total of $472,709.40, and also the letter of resignation from James Berberet from the Planning Commission. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Busker to approve the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
That is approved 8-0.
Thank you. Next is the second reading of ordinance 2018-56. Could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance amending zoning map for 2 parcels at end of South 18th Avenue.
Thank you. Director Zubkov.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a brief overview and summary of this request for the second reading. The developer is seeking to rezone these 2 parcels to A1 for a proposed solar site. That's about 8 acres in size plus 30 acres of agriculture. Much of the property is already being used for agriculture. This request was heard by the Zoning Board of Appeals on November 1st at their meeting and the Planning Commission at their meeting on November 8th. Both of those groups, as well as staff, would ask the City Council to approve this request.
Alderman Parker.
Make a motion to approve.
Second it.
For ordinance 2018-56. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
do we need this motion with it already being on second reading?
This is the second reading.
Correct.
We don't need a motion. We don't need a motion.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Berberet.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
And Ross.
Aye.
The ordinance passes 8-0.
Okay, now we have a first reading, which will require a first and a second, of ordinance 2018-59. Could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance for the levy and assessment of taxes for the fiscal year beginning May 1, 18 and ending April 30th, 19 for the city of Freeport, County of Stevenson, and state of Illinois. At the
Council meeting and that we had presented to you at the COW. This increases our overall levy by $23,000 based upon the increase in $25,000 based upon the estimated increase in EAV that we have received from the county tax, the property tax into the 3 pensions, primarily into the police pension. Where the increase you'll see is we had $146,000 going into the police pension, into the general fund that is now going into the police pension. We're also putting all of the personal property replacement tax into the fire and police pensions. This moves us closer to fully funding the police pension and it still leaves that gap in the fire pension. I'm standing by for any questions along with Director Bucas.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
Yeah, City Manager Crowe, what you stated there was with the 0% or with the option 2 we have in front of us?
So I sent you what you have is, this is the 0%. I also sent each one of you a copy of the 5% that we had talked, or the 4.995. What is on the ordinance that is being proposed is the 0% levy option, and not the one that you received additionally in your packets is the 4.995%, which was not, at the last council meeting, was not what we had been asked to forward.
Follow up, Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Okay, if you could, Manager Crowe, the impact of staying with the 0 or going with the 4.995%, could you review that a little bit and how would it impact the city services, manpower, that kind of stuff if we stayed with the 0 versus going with the option 2?
Well, the impact to city services and manpower and the brief that we've given on some of the manpower changes, it would not change between either the 0 or the 4.995. The only difference between the two is the police pension. We would meet our pension obligation. The the 4.995 would meet the 90% obligation that is required by the state. We still would need to do all of the reductions we talked to you about in manpower. So no matter whether we do this or the 4.995, that is still there. That proposal is still on the table.
One more follow-up, Mayor.
Alderman Keister.
And with the 0%, is there anything going to have to come out of the general fund or any other fund to meet the pension obligation?
Well, this does not fully meet the pension obligations. So this funds below that 90, funds both of those pensions at below that 90% amount.
Mayor?
Madam,
Or go ahead, Tom.
go ahead. Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
There's been a lot of discussion on this in the past few weeks, and one of the first things I want to bring up is the fact that, like I'd mentioned last time, that we have paid everything that has been asked for the pensions. The pension thing is not only a situation in Freeport, it's a situation all over the state. And please keep in mind, it has nothing to do with the personnel or anything else, so I really don't want anybody to say, hey, you know, nobody shouldn't get this and somebody shouldn't get that. It's a matter of us coming forward to meet the obligations that have been set up. And how we do that is probably going to take a little bit of a turn from the 5% or the 4.99% or the 0%. I know Peter has really worked hard on coming up with some other options, and I don't think all those figures are on the table yet, but I believe it would give us some other options of resources that would greatly help towards the pensions. And I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that we need to do. Peter has pledged that, hey, I really want to work with everybody that is at the 5%, and so we can get someplace in the middle and work this thing out. I want to make sure that we all work together, stay on the same page here, and if there is a way of doing it and getting the money from some changes in taxes without going to the real estate taxes, I feel as though that could be an option for us also. There's probably some low-hanging fruit in the deal that, you know, might be easy to look at. There's other things from utilities to different taxes. So those, I think, we really need to discuss more over the next week. But Peter, could you weigh in? And
Sure. With the contributions recommended, the 0% option would leave us about $80,000 short on the police side. And Manager Crow can indicate, but it's closer to around $500,000 on the fire side for the 90% target within the 2040 window to get us on board with that. That said, Manager Crow, over the last week, I know the administration's looked significantly at, okay, if we're, and by the way, when we're talking about the 5%, or 4.995%, Manager Crow, we're dealing with approximately somewhere around 170,000, give or take. That the difference between that and 0% option.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that brings us to fully funded to on the police side.
Okay. From my perspective, we're looking at, there's obviously all kinds of revenue sources that you could look at. You could look at property tax, you could look at sales tax, you got, you know, water taxes and fees and things of that nature. You've got, we don't have currently a cigarette or vapor tax. You've got utility taxes, both from electricity and NICOR. And I think when you look at those revenue sources that we already have, some of them pop out at you. Obviously, property tax, we know per capita is very high in the region. Sales tax is, when you include food and beverage tax in it, again, very high in the region, and increasing in one of those areas, I think, makes us very non-competitive towards other communities. We all know the water and sewer fee increases that have been implemented to take care of over in excess $200 million worth of work that's coming on that. So that said, Manager Crow's also and looking at, you know, what are some of the, do we have any others, such as electricity and things of that nature, whereby we maybe aren't in those thresholds of the community? What are the dollar figures on that? Also, for instance, you know, we had a good year in health insurance over this last year, so we'll be getting some premium money back for that. I think it would be prudent for us to, on the savings that we have on that, to apply that towards our unfunded liability. And then, again, I'm not trying to be vague, but I think the numbers, it's kind of been a running conversation as to where the numbers are at. Bottom line, at the end of the day, I think there are other revenue options that are out there, particularly probably maybe on the electricity side that we're looking at, that haven't already put us at a competitive disadvantage, could help, along with some of those other savings that we already have, bridge the gap in that remaining funding gap that we have on there without further taxing the property taxes. As I said at the outset a couple weeks ago, if property taxes were the only sole source of revenue for our pensions, we'd have no choice. It would have to be an increase on property taxes. There are other sources of revenue as well as other sources of funding, even outside of revenue, that can be explored. So at this time, frankly, up until a couple days ago, I wasn't sure that we would have enough other options outside of property tax. However, with the work that's continued to be done over the weekend by Manager Crow and the departments, I'm comfortable, from my perspective, going forward on the 0% on this, with the pledge that there will be some other revenue sources that are going to have to be looked at between now and budget time, and some form of them adopted to, coupled with the other savings, to make us meet our targets.
And then also, Manager Crow was, I think one thing that I would feel a lot more comfortable with as we move forward, if there is a tax created or if there is a fee created, they're both four-letter words, you can say what you want. If there is something created that we can make these gaps, I want to make sure, or try and make sure, that we earmark them specifically for pensions, so that they don't go away off to Never Never Land. You know, years ago, we always heard that this transfer tax was supposed to be used for this, but there's nothing that's ever documented or anything like that. So I'm comfortable in moving forward the way we are, and I think we just need to take a look at if we can get some funds available for this, which we need to, okay? We need to earmark it for that so it stays there. So,
Madam Mayor? Oh, sorry.
Alderman Busker.
Yeah, with the numbers that we've seen roughly and the options of other taxes, were you making a motion on that? If not,
Go ahead.
I'd make the motion that we move the 0% tax levy forward with the understanding that we will be looking at other options.
Well, we have a motion on the floor to move ordinance 2018-59 to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second that. Yeah, I'll second.
Mayor,
Further discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
yes. I have several things on this. Number one, you're talking about extra revenue sources and stuff, which I believe I've also mentioned in the past as well, and I'm not against. The thing is, the question I would have on that, before we even vote on this, can we get those? How much are they, and when can they be implemented? I mean, if we vote on 0% now and we find out that some of these things we're counting on to do this don't show up, then we're going to be in a position where we're either going to have to lay off personnel, cut services, or something to be able to make that kind of money up. I am not comfortable with voting on a 0% tax levy if we don't know for sure that that other revenue is going to be there. And that's something that I am just not comfortable with. And I stated last meeting I was not comfortable with even starting to move forward with a 0% because I knew it was going to stay there like we had in the past. And if we had not done that in the past and got a little more buffer built up, we wouldn't be in this position today. We need to keep moving forward, and going with a 0%, I do not believe is going to do that. And unless you can prove to me that those monies are going to be there, and we don't have to wait 3 months to find out if we're going to get them, there's no way I would vote for a 0%.
Mayor?
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank Levy for doing the minutes. They were very precise off the last meeting that we had regarding this matter, and 13 pages of minutes to go through and find out these details to try to remember some of the answers. And also some of the answers were listed in those minutes as far as a possible revenue source. From the committee of the whole meeting, an alderperson asked for examples specifically for alternative funding, and the answers were a 1/4 cent increase in sales tax would generate $660,000, and a 1/4 cent increase in food and beverage tax would generate $130,000 annually. Neither of these increases are being proposed. This information is only provided to answer the question. So I'm not sure who provided those answers. I'm assuming Randy or Manager Crowe. Thank you. But they were in those 13 pages of minutes, but they're hard to find.
Mayor.
Alderman McClatchy.
Thank you. And in addition to those numbers as presented at the last meeting, as Alderperson Brashaw just referenced, Manager Crowe, as you've looked through the various, and I don't even know how many different, but you've looked at various options, both from savings and then also sources of revenue. Obviously, it's going to take action of the council, but do you believe that there are sufficient avenues that can be pursued outside of property tax, sales tax, and water tax that could meet for this year the gap to finish fully funding the recommendation of police and fully fund the recommendation of fire?
I do.
It's going to take an act of council.
It's going to take an act of council that we have looked at all of the different utilities as well as some other taxes. Because we're home rule, one of the taxes, it only generates $12,000, but does generate that cigarette tax. Vapor tax requires another 1 cent. That gives us about 8,000. But we have come up with a series of sources, and at least one that we can generate enough money to cover these deficits as we go forward. We've looked at the funding sources without going into detail because we're still doing some additional research that we are, two of our utilities that we are currently taxing, we sit at the very bottom 2% in the state in what we're taxing at.
And Manager Crowe, or Mayor, follow.
Alderman McClatchy.
And Manager Crowe, we can review all of those sources at the budget time where we're not, because right now we're dealing with, we have to pass a tax levy in a vacuum without exact budget figures, which are coming up in the next few months. We'll have a better idea of those budget figures. But for instance, like we said, any savings like we were talking about with the health care, any additional changes that will be finalized or not, plus here are some of your options for the revenue. And then if you don't want to go through those, then here's what the cuts you'd have to make. But all that can be laid out in the budget process, and you have full confidence that we're not going to find ourselves in a situation where we say, oh, well, it's either cut 20 officers or fire officials, or you should have raised the levy, correct?
I am fully confident in that.
Mayor?
Alderman Burberry.
Mr. Manager, clarification, if additional revenue sources are not found, can we go back and modify the levy? That's a technical question I don't know the answer.
So go, and I'll also ask Attorney Sosnowski on this, but so tonight we need to approve a levy amount going forward. It then has to be published from 7 to 14 days after approval from council. That's 7 to 14 days. At the end of that time, which if it's approved today, it's got to sit there published, and then we have to approve it either the meeting, the next meeting, or going forward. Is that correct?
The actual tax levy has to be approved by the last Tuesday in December. And I think that in your packet this evening, you'll see a note from the finance director that with the holiday coming up, that the county clerk would like to have all levies by Friday, December 21st. You do have a council meeting on the 17th, but I think it's the finance director's pleasure that if it's possible to have something approved by the meeting tonight, that would be preferable. Is that correct?
Well, we need at least to have an idea of what the levy should be so we could publish it.
Oh, for the estimated levy. Mhm.
That's what we're looking for tonight.
So you need to know what direction the council wants to go in terms of option A or option B for purposes of the estimated levy, but then the final approval of the actual ordinance does not need to take place until December 17th.
That's correct.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
Roxanne, if I could, a couple different things were mentioned that changes some thought in my mind, but let me ask this. If we approve this levy tonight to move forward at 0%, okay? And the third week, we say we want to raise it to the 4.99%, can that happen?
Yes, you can. Your estimated levy does not need to match what your final approval is.
Okay, that's what I
So
wanted
Alderman
to
Clem,
make sure.
it's just,
It's just
approval
an
isn't really the correct term. We're just moving something forward for the sake of those deadlines.
Right. and-
Approval comes in 2 weeks.
Right, and that's why when I talked before, one of the things I mentioned or I thought was, you know, that we would move this paperwork forward along with the other paperwork coming in. And then we do have tell me if I'm wrong, right now we have nothing more than a motion and a second on the 0%.
That is correct.
Okay, and that's to get it to where we can publish it. Okay? Can we have discussion on this next week if we need to at the COW?
Yes, you can. Absolutely. And you can also, again, continue to discuss the levy at the meeting on the 17th as well.
Okay.
Madam Mayor? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were finished.
Sure. No, go ahead.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I see that you signed the legal format Truth and Taxation Certificate of Compliance, and I'm assuming, I read through this, and it says because it's less than a 5% increase, either option A or option B, a notice and a hearing are not necessary. Is that correct?
That is correct. A truth and taxation hearing is only needed in the event that we looked to exceed that 5% increase, and that's a PTEL requirement.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
if we're going to be discussing this at the COW next week, which I hope we are, because I really am not comfortable with this, can we have the figures on these supposed other revenue sources that will short up and allow us to do it? Because to me, right now, we're talking about revenue sources that we could enact. We're talking about possible savings from insurance and stuff that could make this happen. We're kind of betting on what if that we're going to have enough money to do it. Yeah, we're saying now that if we go with a zero and these things don't happen, we still don't have to lay off employees and stuff. I don't know if I'd even feel comfortable if that was done in writing right now. To pass a 0% without having some proof in front of us that this other revenue sources are going to happen and we're not going to have layoffs and stuff, I just simply cannot do. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not happy with it because I think we're kind of, and no offense towards anybody that's been working on this, but we're kind of building on a pipe dream. You know, show me this stuff's can happen, and show me we're going to get this money, and then maybe I can be comfortable with a 0%. But right now, with what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, I cannot be comfortable with it. I think we need to do something. It doesn't necessarily have to be option 2. It could be something a lesser amount. But to agree on this with a promise that this is going to happen and that's going to happen to be able to shore it up, I just can't do it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have ordinance.
Could I have one more follow-up on that, please?
As long as you don't repeat yourself again.
I'm not going to. Can we have some of that figures and stuff for the COW to look at?
Mayor,
Alderman McClenathan.
Manager Crowe, that wouldn't be a problem having some of the, just.
We can put that together
Okay.
for the committee of the whole. We're also going to have a presentation on another proposal on how to fund the liability as we're going forward that is being presented to several communities across the state, from Spear Financial and Baird, on what they're going forward with, what they are having a proposal that they are currently proposing to about 85 communities across the state right now.
Okay, so we will move ordinance 2018-59. Actually, do we want to move that to the cow then? And as well, put it on for second reading? Do we need a motion for both things then?
No, you can. Sorry, Mayor, you could just have this placed on the agenda for cow.
Okay. So if we can place that on the agenda for the cow, and then ordinance 2018-59 for the second reading at the next regularly scheduled council meeting. Next on the agenda is the first reading of ordinance 2018-60. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
An ordinance for the levy and assessment of taxes for the fiscal year beginning May 1, 2018 and ending April 30th, 2019 for the Public Library of City of Freeport, County of Stevenson, and State of Illinois.
Thank you. Director Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. As was previously mentioned, that we're placing the library levy on front of you tonight so that we can at least have something published in the paper. The library board will be meeting on Wednesday, December 12th, to discuss their levy. We expect that the board will make a recommendation that the library levy remain the same as it is this year. Both the library board president and the new director and I met, and it's a recommendation to the board that we leave the tax levy at the same rate as was this year. This will generate an additional $10,242 to their general operating fund. Currently, the library receives $848,413 in general purpose corporate tax, and with the new levy, it'll be $858,655.
Discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
a motion to move it forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman McClanathan, seconded by Alderman Clem for moving ordinance 2018-60 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to the first reading of ordinance 2018-61. Madam Clerk, would you please read this?
An ordinance to abate the 2018 real estate tax levy for the repayment of the general obligations bonds, Series 2013A.
Thank you. Director Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm recommending that the City Council abate $89,075 in interest and principal for 2019 from the Series 2013A General Obligation.
Director Bucus, these are mostly housekeeping matters regarding these bonds, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to move it forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Busker to move ordinance 2018-61 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move on to the first reading of ordinance 2018-62. Could you please read this for the record?
An ordinance to abate the 2018 real estate tax levy for the repayment of the general obligations bonds, Series 2014A.
Thank you. Director Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, I'm recommending that we abate a tax levy of $775,800 in interest and principal for 2019. The funds for this bond are coming from the sewer operating fund.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
motion to move it forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Clem to move ordinance 2018-62 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move on to the first reading of ordinance 2018-63. Madam Clerk?
63?
Yes.
Did I get him out of order, giving him to Jim? I'm on.
63.
An ordinance to abate the 2018 real estate tax levy for the repayment of the general obligations bonds, Series 2014B.
Thank you. Director Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm out of order. With the 2018 general obligation bonds, I'm recommending that the $92,752.50 for interest and principal in 2009 be abated, And the funds to pay for this bond will come from TIF, from the downtown TIF.
That's actually that's 2018-66.
I thought, okay.
We're on 63.
This is 2014
B, right. Right, that's $236,162 in abatement, and those funds are coming from the sewer operating fund.
Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
motion to move forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman McClanathan, seconded by Alderman Busker to move ordinance 2018-63 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to the first reading of ordinance 2018-64. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to abate the 2018 real estate tax levy for the repayment of the general obligations bonds, Series 2015A.
Thank you. Director Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're requesting an abatement of $802,325 in interest and principal for 2019. The funds to pay for this bond are coming from the downtown TIF, partially from the general fund, the sewer fund, and the storm fund.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
motion to move it forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Busker to move ordinance 2018-64 onto the next regularly scheduled council meeting. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move on to the first reading of ordinance 2018-65. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to abate the 2018 real estate tax levy for the repayment of the general obligations bonds, Series 2016.
Thank you. Director Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. Requesting abatement of $181,715 in interest and principal for 2019, and funds to pay for this will come out of general operating fund.
Motion to move it forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Keister to move ordinance 2018-65 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move on to the first reading of ordinance 2018-66. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to abate the 2018 real estate tax levy for the repayment of the general obligations bonds, Series 2018.
Director Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. With this ordinance, we're requesting tax levy abatement of $92,752.50 in interest and principal for 2019, and the funds to pay for this bond, these bond payments are coming out of downtown TIF.
Motion to move it forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Keister to move ordinance 2018-66 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. Any discussion on this ordinance?
Madam Mayor,
Madam Clerk.
I missed the second on that, please.
Alderman Keister.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, we will move on to the first reading of ordinance 2018-67.
An ordinance amending codified ordinances to incorporate position of treasurer into position of finance director.
Thank you. Manager Crow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We, on the 20th, we received a certified from the county clerk that the passing of the treasurer position combining with the financial director, the referendum passed. And this establishes the financial director to serve as the city treasurer, shall have all the powers and perform the duties required of the treasurer as set forward in the state statute, to include deposited money received from all sources, vesting city funds in accordance with the city investment policy, at least once per month, submit a report to the city manager showing the state of the treasury, hold as a special fund all monies received on special assessments, perform all duties the city manager may from time to time direct, and may combine monies from one fund for the city purpose of investing those funds. And wherever the code reflects the state treasurer, they will now be changed to be directed to be the financial director.
Discussion.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. I understand that Mr. Bucus will have extra duties,
Yes.
including his own. Will he be the one that will confer with the city employees when they have issues or need to look at the retirement portfolios, or will he have one of his other designees?
Well, actually, Randy, you want to go? We have, because we've hired, the two pension funds have actually hired Lautenbacher Naaman to handle the pension funds. That was so whether the city employees confer with.
Yeah, basically, if it's fire and police, they would have to talk to Lauterbach and Naaman. We give them that information. If it's employee that's with IMRF, we give them the IMRF phone number.
Follow up? Thank you. So they come to see you, Mr. Bucas, and then you would refer them to the Lauterbach and Naaman for their information?
Yes, if it's a police or fireman, yes.
So if you look at what the requirements under the state statute, the advice that was being given, that's given by the treasurer, is that the treasurer position is strictly the city's representative for oversight to the pensions. There is no requirement for the treasurer to give advice for the retirees. That comes from the pension funds themselves.
Thank you for that information.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
Follow up if I could, Director Crow, or Manager Crow. You mentioned, you had said that both of the boards were the ones that hired the accounting firms?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Further discussion?
I guess one question would be, does this need any expediting or anything, or?
I don't believe so, not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion to move it forward?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman McClanathan, seconded by Alderman Clem, to move ordinance 2018-67 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting, which moves us on to the next one, which it is moved to the next committee of the whole meeting. So we will move on to the reports of department heads. Finance.
Thank you, Your Honor. The only thing I have for tonight is that we're working on our budget sheets for next fiscal year, and those will be going out to the department heads this Friday.
Thank you. Community development.
Yeah, Your Honor, thank you. Just a couple things. Firstly, wanted to remind this Wednesday at 6 p.m. we're holding a town hall meeting at St. Paul's Missionary Baptist Church to further inform the community about our pre-disaster mitigation grant application. Again, that seeks to acquire and demolish structures in flood-prone areas. We'll be answering questions about that grant program and acquiring signatures from interested property owners in the floodway. And those signatures will assist with our grant application. Once again, it's important to note that participation in the program is completely voluntary. Eminent domain will not be used by any level of government if somebody chooses not to participate in the program or if purchase price negotiations fail. Staff has been encouraging anyone who owns property within the floodway to attend the meeting. If they're unable to attend the meeting, then we've been inviting them to give us a call at City Hall or come in and meet with us in person here. And also the Pretzel City Transit Bus to Burner Foods continued on Saturday, with employees now paying their own way instead of rides being paid for by the company after that contract ended at the end of November. And after only a couple of days, Forrest and my department and Pretzel City Transit have been pleased with the ridership numbers so far. So that's good news for all involved.
Thank you. Public Works.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We are currently still continuing to pick up leaves. We do ask that no more leaves be put out to the curb. We are currently at 531 loads. Last year, there was a total of 503 loads. So we have currently picked up more leaves than we did last year, and last year we did leaf pickup until December 17th. So we have picked up more in less time, and we're continuing to do so every day.
And we appreciate that. Fire.
Thank you, Mayor.
Just so you all know, on Thursday, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Chief Barklow and myself will be at Walmart, ringing the bell for Salvation Army, trying to raise money for that cause. I'll be at one door, Chief will be at the other, and I think members of our department will be helping as well to try to raise money for that cause. So if you're out and about, come see us.
What's the time frame?
10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
And police.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to mention that this Saturday at 10 a.m. we'll be doing our annual Shop with a Cop little event where we purchase, clothing and other necessities for kids, underprivileged kids, and we'll be doing that Saturday at Walmart as well. Again, Shop with a Cop this Saturday. 10
And how are you on finance with that?
Well, it's we're doing pretty well. It depends on how much money we get into what we can spend on each child, but we certainly, the Lord provides, and we generally scrape by each and every year. So because of the generosity of the people of Freeport.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Water and sewer.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. An update on the Float Street Water Main and Sewer Main project. As of last Wednesday, we finally received our permit to start construction on the sewer main. Due to the weather conditions, we're going to start in the spring. That's all I have.
Thank you. IT. And library, would you like to add to something tonight?
I'm good, thank you.
We will move on to the manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of quick things. I want to recognize a couple people this evening. Connie Marney and Todd Allen. We are the first community under IPBC that has reached a level C wellness level within the first year of shifting over to IPBC. So Chief Allen and Connie and their committee did an outstanding. We had 125 participants in the city, and that'll benefit everybody. We did talk about, you heard comments about it. As you know, I am the Q-CHIP, which is the smaller communities in Northern Illinois representative, back to IPBC. We found out that we are receiving $190,000 back from IPBC over the this for a period of time that we have been with them. As you know from that program, if we have a good year, they return money back to that. We are going to take $70,000 of that. We have $30,000 that has to go into our reserve since we're a first time with them, then take $70,000, put it towards some additional health care bills from run out from our previous one, and then it'll leave us on $90,000 in the amount that we have that we can place. So some good news from health care and as we're going forward. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder to the citizens, on Thursday, which is the 6th at 8 a.m. at Starbucks, is the Meet with the Mayor session from 8 to 9. So if you have and you want to come and discuss anything that you'd like to, you can first come, first serve, 5 minutes. And then also on Thursday at 11:30, the Freeport Area Church Cooperative is having their hunger luncheon, and which I received an email today that they are sold out. And so that's a great thing, but at the same time, that doesn't stop the needs that they have. So the city has put together a donation advent calendar. So if you saw when you came in today, there's a big box in the foyer here. And so if you would like to add, actually on a daily basis, we've got a whole list of needs that the homeless shelter has, everything from crackers to packages of oatmeal. So we just would welcome any donations that you would have to help with those homeless needs. So that would conclude for me. And so Alderman Parker.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you. Alderman Busker.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you. Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I personally wanted to welcome the Library Director, Ashley Huffines. And I know you've got big shoes to fill, but I know you're a very intelligent lady, and you're very remarkable. I can say that. I've spoke to you a few times now, so good luck with everything with that. I also want to reach out and welcome our new Alderman at Large, James Berberet. I've known this gentleman for a few years, and your calm, collective, thoughtful process will be appreciated on the City Council. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Keister.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Berberet.
Thank you, Sally. Does that mean the rest of us are not calm? I'm not sure what that means. I look forward to working with the council and the manager and the mayor and the department heads. And throughout my career here in Freeport, and we've been here 50 years now, I've always been part of a team. I believe in getting things done as a team. And I'm not one individual, I'm part of a team, and that's what I look forward to working with all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Good to be with you.
Thank you. Alderman Clem.
Also, welcome to Ashley and Jim. I appreciate you guys coming on board. I look forward to working with both of you. Other than that, please go out and harass Todd 1 and Todd 2 Thursday and give them some extra money and also shop with the cop. But please, if you have any time available, give the Salvation Army a call. They still need some ringers, and there's a lot of work that they have coming up. So thank all of you very much for that.
Yes, thank you. Alderman McClanathan.
I'd just like to welcome, or echo the welcome to the new director as well as the new alderman at large. Look forward to working with you both.
And Alderman Ross.
I'd like to ditto what Alderman McClanahan just said. And as I stated before, Tom, I will be getting in contact to ring a couple bells and yeah, see what we can do.
Got a couple days, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is public comment. We have written. One on the list is Andy Dvorak.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak briefly in response to the City Council's fantasy narrative about Old City Hall on November 19th. Most of you gave kind of back-patting cover for each other in your claim that Old City Hall was simply the victim of previous decades of mayoral and council neglect. There's certainly enough blame to go around, but much of it is yours and your colleagues over the last 7 years or so. And we have detailed documentation of this. For instance, you implied that Old City Hall was a hopeless case by 2011. That simply is not true. On August 22nd, 2011, historic architect Gary Anderson gave a presentation to the council in which he stated that the building was structurally sound, but warned that the city had to address the issues of water getting into the building. Over the next several years, he repeatedly warned about this. Also, from the beginning, everyone, the city, Gary Anderson, Citizens for Saving City Hall, everyone agreed that the mezzanine needed to be removed. This was never an issue. In April 2012, Old City Hall earned a spot on Landmark's Illinois 10 Most Endangered Historic Places. In August of 2012, Gary Anderson submitted at his own expense a detailed reuse floor plan for the entire building, showing how the cramped spaces in the building could be opened up. This was largely ignored by the city. Several months later, I was on a tour of the building with Gary Anderson and the city engineer. Gary asked the engineer about the condition of the leaking roof. The engineer reported that it leaked regularly, with a lot of water pouring into the old mayor's office in particular, when it rained, of course. Gary asked him what he was doing about it, and he replied that he was doing nothing. I'd never seen the usually mild-mannered Gary so upset. 2 weeks ago, members of the council ridiculed the use of plastic swimming pools in the attic in previous decades to catch rainwater. As pathetic as that situation was, at least they tried to do something, right? Unlike the near neglect or near total neglect of the last few years. And should the presence of black mold be a surprise when you allow the roof to leak year after year after year? As to saving the Carnegie Library, Citizens for Saving City Hall was always in favor of saving it. In fact, we recommended that it be renovated as a city-county annex. especially so the county could stop having to pay rent to Brian Stewart. If more clarification is needed about this really sorry episode, we have detailed documentation that we can provide and are happy to be of service. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there other public comment? Tommy?
Don Parker, when they're gonna tear that down?
Talk later, Tom.
What?
We'll talk later.
And Joel Cole, you do a good job with that, and you and Joey Miller. And we got the tournament coming up on for the snowshoes tournament, and it's going to be this Saturday.
All right,
for
thank you, Tommy.
Special Olympics. So I just wanted to tell you, Joey Miller, you're doing good. And what about this that Staples? How's it look for that hardwood made?
Well, they're looking at about a 90-day renovation.
So they're going to open up?
Harbor Freight's going to be opening sometime towards the end of January to the beginning of February.
Okay.
Thank you, Tommy. Is there any other public comment?
Non-agenda also?
Correct.
I'd like to first hand out something that for everybody on the council to kind of follow me with on. Okay?
Sure, that's fine. And if you could state your name, then that would also.
Yeah, Terry Steenrod.
You missed one.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks. I'm Terry Steenrod, and I'm mad about litter and what to do about it in Freeport, my hometown. If you'll recall, this body received an email from me recently on the subject of litter in Freeport and my interest of involvement in efforts to fight the problem. You all remember? About 2 months ago? I have a few copies if you don't recall it. Thank you to Councilwoman Brashaw, Councilman McClanathan, Mayor Jody, and Manager Crow for your responses, thoughts, and replies. For the record, and for the other attendees this evening, my email contact to this body a few months ago raised the issue of litter, where I suggested formation of a focus group to review and explore all facets of Freeport's litter issue. I offered my willingness to be a part of such a group and asked what the next step might be to move such an initiative in a positive direction. So far, other than the business-like responses I mentioned, I'm currently at a loss of hearing or knowing what is your pleasure with the ideas I have proposed and am expressing tonight. The photo I've shared, I attest, represents a little harvest on a 50-minute, 3-mile walk from my home on Santa Fe onto Greenfield, south to Church, east to Park, north to Laurel, and west back to Greenfield, finishing at Santa Fe. All this stinking garbage in this picture on just one west side walk this year. To conclude, I'd like to leave you with a few rhetorical questions. When was the last time there was a comprehensive assessment and review of Freeport's litter issues with renewed efforts to address the problem? On a 1 to 10 scale, where is this issue on the city's priority list? Who does one call to report an occurrence or an area of litter? Is it one number or more numbers? Is this number effortlessly found or easy to remember? Is it believed that the current fines that may be assessed for littering would tend to discourage further practice or have little effect? Have there been any recent discussions on how advancements in detection technology might be helpful and used in identifying littering occurrences and offenders? I can think of numerous low-cost or no-cost actions that I believe would help to counteract littering. Can you? And my last question is, I know that there have been groups that have taken initiative to beautify the city, but how much scheduling with coordination has there been with commitments for ongoing volunteerism with the conditions we have? The proverbial litter is in your yard. Thanks for listening and considering and hopefully caring.
Thank you, Terry. We appreciate that. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to the last item, which is the executive session. Madam Clerk, could you please read this for the record?
Pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C11, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the findings shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to enter into the closed session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Keister. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Parker?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Keister?
Aye.
Berberay? Clem?
Aye.
McLanathan? And Ross.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.